Okay, ha, Scott, very funny. You made a game where we toss pizzas at 8-bit children. This is so much fun. Of course. Welcome everyone to my video covering Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. So, when you start up this game for the very first time, you are shown an 8-bit minigame where you are playing as Freddy and you have to collect pizzas and throw them at 8-bit children for them to eat. Which followed what Scott had told us about earlier that year, when he said that while working on the next entry, which was supposed to be the finale, it was too stressful for him and that he feared it might not deliver. So, he would be working on a smaller project slash spin off for the time being, which did have many people kind of disappointed. I mean, you have to remember the state of the fan base at this point. The last game was Sister Location, which left many questions left to be answered. The novels that came out did nothing but overcomplicate matters even more, so there was a lot of hype building up to the finale of the series. So you can imagine the priceless reactions on the faces of players when on December of 2017, after the minigame glitches out, they're met with this.
Oh! 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 Oh my god!
In my opinion, this is the best reveal of the entire franchise, as it was very unexpected with little to no teaser build-ups. Let's start with the ambience. This might just be my favorite Five Nights game, to be honest. I just love the aesthetic look of this game, from its tycoon aspects to the office and the salvage sections. The tycoon section is quite fun to play through. It's basically you building your own Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, with customizable items such as paper cups and plates, new animatronics in the form of Orville Elephant and his gang, the Rockstar animatronics, Trash and the Gang, etc. And also, a few mini games that hold answers to some of the most important mysteries of this entire franchise. It's no wonder this game is what gives us the most answers to the lore that we've had in any entry so far. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about that in the lore analysis. We also have the office section, where it's basically FNaFs 1 through 3, but no doors or cameras. Instead, we have a motion detector and an audio decoy. The office section is not bad by any means, but it's definitely the weakest of all three sections. The ambience is okay, but nothing to praise. The jump scares are handled weirdly, like the animatronics just kind of pop up out of nowhere from the side of your screen to jump scare you. The jump scares themselves are good, but the execution to lead up to said jump scare in this section, not so great. It has some pretty good gameplay loop though, which I'll go further into in the gameplay analysis. And finally, we have the salvage section. And it's easily the best of all three. The lighting is handled masterfully, as there's just enough light to see the monstrosity sitting a few feet away from you, but there is just enough obscurity so that the environment can remain mysterious and haunting. The jump scares here are chef's kiss. This just goes to show that the right build-up can change the impact and quality of a jump scare entirely. The cassette man's voice acting enhances the scene a lot more, which I really liked. The tense build up as you're marking your checklist really quickly, only to see the horrific monster in front of you move, is spine chilling. I believe you can understand where some FNAF VHS tapes got their inspiration from post December 2017. The voice acting in this game is simultaneously cheesy and extremely effective at the same time. Kellen Goff, PJ Haywood, Heather Masters, and Andy Field return for this entry with splendid additions to the game, along with new actors such as David Steely. I can already tell some of you are waiting for me to cover a certain ending with cheesy yet effective dialogue, but we'll go over the voice acting again later on in further detail. Next up is the gameplay. So, the Tycoon section is like I said earlier. You decorate and make your own Freddy Fazbear's Pizza through buying items with in-game cash. Some products are good for entertainment and give you good ratings, while others have a certain liability risk, which can lead to lawsuits. With enough lawsuits, it's game over, buddy. You also have several arcade-style mini-games to play, some of which are crucial to solving the lore of the franchise, and some that are just there cause why not. I'll take Helpy though. That dude has made an appearance in pretty much every FNaF game after Pizza Sims, except maybe FNaF AR. You can also upgrade your pizzeria and buy sponsorships for extra money. However, beware of sponsors. They may have an adverse effect in another section of this game. But before we move on to that section, I would just like to point out an Easter egg I found when replaying the game for this video. Here, listen to the sound that plays during this minigame. And now listen to this. It's a leitmotif, Toreador March, the soundtrack used in the first game of the franchise. Anyways, with that said, let's move on. The office section basically involves you having to complete tasks in order to win, instead of surviving up to a certain time like in the older games. How long you take to complete a night is your decision. How long you will take to complete the tasks given to you, absolutely up to you. You are given access to a motion detector and an audio decoy for defense against monstrosities crawling in the vents drawn to your office due to sounds made from your fan, the sounds from your PC when they're doing a task, and even when a sponsorship ad plays. Remember how I said taking sponsorships may have an adverse effect? Well, yeah, this is it. And many players have died to this. And it has been completely their fault. No player feels like their run has been wrongfully ended by the game. Since said player made the choice of having sponsors, it is now completely on them to face the consequences of that. Which is one of the reasons why I love this game. And finally, we have the salvage section. So, we pretty much have to play a recording of Cassette Man and do tests on some familiar and not so familiar faces every night after our shift. These include Scrap Baby, Scrap Trap, Molten Freddy, and Lefty. We must complete the salvage in order to get cash and get the true ending. And we have to mark on a piece of paper if these animatronics show responses to the audio played. But while marking on the checklist, they may move. The Cassette Man says if they show unstable behavior, as in stuff like moving, it's best to shock them with the provided taser to bring it back to a neutral state. However, this can only be done 3 times before the value of the animatronic goes down due to taking damage from it too many times. It may be quite simple compared to what we faced in previous installments, but this gameplay loop is very effective. Now we have the animatronics. So, the Rockstar animatronics are all pretty good designs, I would say. I would have liked them to have had a major involvement, but the game isn't really about them, so it's understandable. Circus Baby's new design is pretty good. In fact, I would put this design as better than the one from Sister Location. All the new stuff added to her design makes her quite unique in a good way. Heather Masters knocks it out of the park with her voice in this game. Seems like she hasn't missed a beat since we last saw the character back in 2016. Molten Freddy is also pretty good. Kellen's voice acting has improved quite a lot in my opinion. The design of the character really shows that after kicking out Baby from the pack, they can barely hold their own body together. At least Ennard could walk around, even though he was just a tangle of wires. But Molten Freddy is in a far worse shape, which adds interesting depth to the character just through visual details. Lefty is the only unfamiliar animatronic. I really like his design. Yeah, I know he's technically just a reskinned Rockstar Freddy, but Rockstar Freddy's design is already good to begin with. And the adding darker colors, I felt like it only enhanced the impact of the design more. The black body with the red cheeks kind of reminds you of a certain character from FNaF 2, doesn't it? Well, if it didn't, then I'll just say Lefty is actually just the puppet, but captured in the animatronic. You can tell this as during Lefty's death screen, when we see him in the back alley, you can see the puppet's striped arm through the animatronic suit. And this is further confirmed thanks to the blueprints belonging to the cassette man, which not only reveal stuff like how the scooper from Sister Location works, but also Lefty's purpose, as it seemed like he was important to this mystery character. And the blueprints reveal that Lefty was designed to capture something and encapsulate it. And because of certain other endings with Cassette Man, it was not only obvious who captured the animatronic inside of Lefty, but also the identity of the soul of the captured animatronic. Lastly, we have Scrap Trap. Look, I won't spend much time on this, as at this point there are already so many videos on the internet discussing how this design is complete garbage and how it can be massively improved. So I'll just say this, Mr. Jimmy Neutron, please come back with a better design next time. With that said, let's talk about the endings. I'm doing endings as a separate chapter because this game has way more than 2 endings like Sister Location or FNaF 3. First, there's the bankruptcy ending, where you end up losing money due to lawsuits for items in your pizzeria that have liability risks. In this ending, you're promptly fired. It's an okay ending as it's a joke after all. Next up is the no risk ending, where you're fired from the pizzeria due to rejecting all salvages throughout your time playing. If someone got this ending in their first playthrough, I have no words. Then we have the mediocre ending, where not only do you salvage any animatronic, but you also don't buy anything for your pizzeria, and thus you're fired at the end of the week. Okay, if someone got this on their first time playthrough, like actually, no comments. Like seriously, I'm not kidding. No comments actually. After that we have the blacklisted ending, where you end up blacklisted at the end of the week due to accumulating enough lawsuits. Hey, the game warned you about liability. Should have taken it. The remaining 3 endings are the ones with actual lore relevance. The first one being the insanity ending, where after buying a giant egg baby, which costs far too much money, from the shop, you close your PC in the office section and reboot it by pressing the power button, which causes a recording of Cassette Man named HRY223 to play. Here, the Cassette Man talks about his regrets in having helped Killer, who he thought of as a close friend. We're also shown the blueprints of the scooper from Sister Location, as I had mentioned earlier, a device that stimulates human body temperatures and goes around making the sounds of a child to lure the bloodthirsty monstrosities in the establishment. And also, the blueprints for Lefty. This ending is semi-relevant to the lore, but the next 2 are on a completely different tier when it comes to importance to the story. So first, let's talk about the Lore Keeper ending, where you must play through the following minigames to completion and a certain number of times. They are Security Puppet, Fruity Maze, and Midnight Motorist. Specifically these due to their massive importance and relevance to the lore of the franchise, but we'll go over those in the lore section. Once the criteria has been met, after the credits, we're met with this, an image that shows 6 gravestones, with the 4 in the front having their names revealed in plain sight, 1 covered in grass, and 1 at the back being identifiable if you squint enough. Again, we will go through all of this in the lore section, because it gets complicated. And now, we finally arrived to the ending everyone's been waiting for. The true ending to FNaF 6, the completion ending. So, to achieve this, all you have to do is make sure to salvage every animatronic and beat the game normally. After meeting this criteria, on your final night in the office, after your work is complete, Scrap Baby starts talking to the player, where she presumes that we have gathered all the souls into one establishment, as instructed. only to then be cut off by Cassette Man, as he explains that this was nothing but a trap and that they had completely fallen for it. What follows is one of the best moments in the entire franchise.
Sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth. If you still even remember that name, but I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume, although you have indeed been called. You have all been called here, into a labyrinth of sounds and smells, misdirection and misfortune. A labyrinth with no exit, a maze with no prize. You don't even realize that you are trapped. Your lust for blood has driven you in endless circles, chasing the cries of children in some unseen chamber, always seeming so near, yet somehow out of reach. But you will never find them. None of you will. This is where your story ends. And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be. I am remaining as well. I am nearby. This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still, and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, friend. My daughter, if you can hear.
Even after 5 years, this speech still hits hard. Although security breach did happen, let's not talk about that now. Basically, Cassette Man burns down the entire establishment and decides that he'll also stay and pass away in the pizzeria set ablaze. He also says that he understands that the owner of the building, aka you the player, also wanted to go down with the ship, with everyone else on it. And so with that, everything burns. Now that we have covered all the endings, we can finally talk about the lore. As you can tell by this point, this game answers a lot of pivotal questions left vague and open by the previous installments. Let's start with the talking of minigames. Security Puppet basically shows us the Save Him cutscene in FNaF 2, but updated with a lot more details to accommodate for the current story. It shows that a kid has been locked outside, asking to be let in. This is Charlie, the son of co-founder of Fredbear's Family Diner, Henry Emily, a business partner to William Afton. To protect her, he had put a bracelet on her that could send messages when she was in danger, and these would be sent to the puppet animatronic. However, the kids in the establishment had put other boxes on top of the puppet box, meaning it could not get out. And wouldn't you know it, this was when she needed help the most. After the puppet is finally able to check for her, due to having received a bracelet code of green which meant it was Charlie's, it checks the back of the alley only to find her dead. So, it then does the one thing left to do: lay down beside her. The next minigame is Fruity Maze, where you play as a girl who collects fruits. Seems harmless, right? Well, not for long, because eventually you find her collecting mutilated remains of her dead dog with blood, by the way. And you collect burial flowers, which is really disturbing. And at the end, she has a conversation with a familiar yellow bunny rabbit, who then lures her to her doom. And finally, we have what might be the most controversial minigame in the series: Midnight Motorist. So, it's basically a racing arcade game where you drive a purple car across the streets at night. Purple car, Well, I'm sure that's not going to be important at some point. But basically, you find a glitch through the bottom of the map where you can then drive through a pathway that leads you to two locations. One of these locations being Juniors, where our player, Yellow Dude, is promptly rejected entry by Green Bouncer Dude. He then drives his car further along the long and narrow road to a house. His house, from what it seems. And it's a pretty familiar house too, from what it looks like. And we've probably played in it before. That's right, this is the FNaF 4 house. Once we enter, we see good old Mikey watching TV like in sister location. And a certain younger brother is also mentioned. Yellow dude then finds footprints outside the house and a cracked window, meaning he had escaped to a familiar location once again, as mentioned. And that's where it ends. Okay, it should be quite obvious who Yellow Dude is. It's William, of course. The reason he isn't depicted in purple here is because Michael was now being depicted as purple in the series, as he was quite literally a living, breathing corpse in the sister location cutscenes. And William committed his other murders in yellow springlock suits, so why wouldn't he be depicted in the color yellow here? And now that we've covered that, let's talk about when the game actually happens and what the endings mean. So, this happens right after the events of FNaF 3, as the fire in Fazbear's Fright had failed to kill the bloodthirsty Afton. Cassette Man during the completion ending states that Scraptrap would be going to the darkest pit of hell once the fire had cleared out, and he had called him his old friend. And if you had read the novels, your brain would be ringing so many red alerts right now. This could only be one person, Henry, back to finish off the mistake he had helped to create so many decades ago. Of course the Cassette Man was Henry, the only other person with knowledge of all that had happened to the Fazbear name throughout the decades, finally taking responsibility for the mistakes and tragedies that had occurred due to him and his old friend William. The Lore Keeper ending shows us the gravestones as I had mentioned earlier. The 4 gravestones in the front are positioned just like the masks at the end of FNaF 3, which was a really nice Easter egg. At the back, we see Charlie's name, and the other gravestone, presumably belonging to the 5th victim of the missing children's incident, is blocked off. However, later on we have found out the name of this individual. The Insanity ending has Henry talking about his regrets in ever helping William. A person who was once a sane and close friend of his is now nothing but a rotting corpse seeking nothing but murder. Lefty's blueprints showed what its true purpose was and why it was important to Henry. The device I had mentioned earlier that stimulated the behavior of children was called the RASC. And as I had also mentioned earlier, the game also then shows us the scooper that had nearly ended our player's life in the previous installment. I hope I was able to convey my reasons as to why I love this game, and I hope you enjoyed it. This has been my longest video on the entire channel so far, over 20 minutes. And with that said, it's over. I might cover FNaF World and UCN eventually, but for now we'll be moving forward with Help Wanted, Security Breach, and maybe FNaF Air, I guess. If enough people want to see that, then I guess I could. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I would really appreciate if you took the time to like and subscribe, as these take a really long time to make. And the support really helps. And with all of that out of the way, I'm signing off. See ya!